There's two things that I took away from it. One is it really taught me how to figure out how to get things done. So working outside of the scope that you're comfortable in and just making it happen. Because you have what you have and you've got a problem to solve. Sometimes you got to get real creative. I think I really developed a lot in that way doing that job. The other thing that I think was very helpful is it's really good to be scared sometimes, to be scared or stressed in these acute instances is beneficial to the rest of your life. It just makes the rest of your life seem a little easier.
Hello, intrepid listeners, and welcome to the Carpe Diem Live Your Dream podcast. If I mention a few terms, can you guess what today's episode is about? Terms like swamper, swatter, dry mopping, hooking the head, rippers. The topic is smoke jumping, the small group of elite wilderness firefighters who parachute out of airplanes to reach fires inaccessible by traditional firefighting equipment and teams. Today's guest is Jess Gilkey, who served with the U.S. Forest Service in this unique job. Although smoke jumping is a job, it exhibits all the same characteristics of my typical guests: huge ambitions, incredible physical stamina, grit, a love of the outdoors, and great adventure. Listen in and learn a bunch of interesting facts about the topic. Enjoy the show. Jess Gilkey, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Dale. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad you're here and not out fighting a fire someplace. So I'm excited about this episode for a couple reasons. One, it's just a little bit different than most because what we're going to talk about was actually your occupation, not just a hobby or an adventure for the heck of it. It was your job. And secondly, I know nothing about it. So we're talking about smoke jumping here. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah. So smoke jumping it's a type of wildland firefighting where you get to the fire via parachute. So that would be for inaccessible fires or fires that they need to get people on ASAP. They could be threatening structures and it's going to take too long to drive in or hike in. And so we'll fly there, parachute in, and start fighting fire.
So it's a wildland firefighter, but with some specialized skills, in particular, I guess, parachuting, but you're also supported with far less heavy equipment than maybe what others would get from a road access?
Yeah, it does. It is often you're using different techniques because you don't have water, you don't have hoses, you don't have a ton of manpower, you don't have bulldozers. Typically, your most typical assignment is you're going to jump in and you're going to go to work with a chainsaw and a pulaski, which is like an axe hoe combination, and you're going to get right up alongside the fire and cut fire break so that fire cannot continue to grow. You're taking all the fuel away. So you'll be right on the edge, cutting down trees, cutting brush, digging it down to dirt until you get around the head of that fire, and then you've contained that fire. A lot of the times you'll be working with aircraft while you're doing that. So maybe a single engineer tanker or a helicopter coming in and putting some water on it to cool it down so that you can get in there and make it manageable so you can get close to the fire. So that's kind of on the most basic level, the bread and butter of what a smoke jumper does.
Well, we definitely want to get into more of the detail on that and some examples. But first, tell us just a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What got you into smoke jumping, into firefighting?
So Jess Gilkey, I work as a city firefighter in Santa Barbara. It's a very different type of challenge, but it's been very rewarding. But earlier in my career, I worked as a smoke jumper. So went to college. I had a pretty miserable corporate job that I was not good at, and was just looking for a way out. And went to a fire academy when I was in my mid-20s, so a little bit of a late start. And one of the guys in my academy had been on a hotshot crew, and he was telling me all about it. So a hotshot crew is another type of wildland firefighters, 20-man hand crews that are the kind of the top level hand crew. So they're going to go to the steepest parts of fires, the hottest parts, and put in this hand line to cut around the fire. He was explaining it to me. It sounded adventurous. It sounded challenging. It sounded like the camaraderie aspect was really appealing. And so after that fire academy, I applied for the Forest Service. I actually did 3 years on Type 3 engine, which is it's big 4-wheel drive fire engine for fighting fire in the woods. And then went from there to hotshot crew, which was a really great experience. A lot of really, really hard work. After that, started applying to go jump. Initially got picked up with the North Cascades smoke jumpers out of Winthrop, Washington. I spent 2 years up there, and then I transferred to the McCall base out of McCall, Idaho.
Just explain briefly the difference between a hot shot and a smoke jumper is primarily the parachuting certification for the smoke jumping, or is there more to it than that?
Yeah, so on a hotshot crew, you're going to be working with 20 people, so that's a big difference. You have a very regimented structure on hotshot crew. You're going to be going to typically bigger fires, established fires that you might typically go there for 2 weeks at a time. You have a very established job. You might be what's called a sawyer, where you'd be in front with a chainsaw, or a swamper, the guy with him pulling the brush, or you could have a radio, being back with the tool, scraping. But you have a very established job. It's a hard job. You work real hard as a hotshot because you go 2 weeks at a time on these fires, and you could be cutting lines 16 hours a day, sleeping in the dirt, and you go home for 2 days, and you might go right back out to that same fire or another fire. And you spend pretty much the whole summer on the road going to fires. But the main difference is, I guess, it's very regimented on a hotshot crew. Yeah, there's no parachuting. Just a little less dynamic of a job. Whereas as a smoke jumper, you're more of a jack of all trades because the plane holds 8 guys. You never know where you're going to go. Typically, you're going to smaller fires because they're these lightning starts. The whole idea is catch them while they're small. And you do fight fire differently because you have so few people. You'll be trying to use geographic aspects, like we've got a creek down here. Maybe we can cut line down to the creek. That'll hold the fire there. You're getting creative, I guess. There's a lot of creativity in the way you're fighting fire as a smoke jumper because you have so much less resources and manpower.
And with the smoke jumping, you're dropped in by parachute and typically places with no roads. So how do you extract yourself?
Typically, sometimes you'll hike out. Sometimes you'll be picked up via helicopter. There's all sorts of creative ways. Sometimes guys get demobbed via jet boats. You hike down to a river and a boat will come get you. The bad one is when you got a long hike of a wilderness area with all your gear, because then you're carrying probably 120 pounds on your back, and it could be for 10 miles or so.
Just bushwhacking through whatever.
Bushwhacking, yeah,
Yeah.
broken ground.
So in both of those cases, hot shot or smoke jumper, you're typically just out, you said sleeping in the dirt, you're out camping near the fire. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. As a smoke jumper, you'll hit the ground, and then the plane comes in low and drops cargo. There'll be some sleeping bags in there, some food, some drinking water, and your tools. You'll have MREs or freeze-dried food, spam, stuff like that. You'll make a little camp wherever's going to be safe from the fire. So typically, you call it the heel of the fire. Usually, the fire will be working one way, either driven by topography or by wind.
So you set up camp on the backside.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then that means every time you're going to actually go to work on it, you got to get around to the front side.
Yeah, and it's not always a huge hike into work in the morning. Sometimes you're right there on the black edge. It's what you call the edge of the fire, and you can get up and go right to work. But other times there's maybe not an appropriate jump spot real close to the fire, and so you could potentially have a good hike into work each morning.
A hike into work. So do you guys joke around, man, this is a tough commute today?
Yeah, there's a bit of joking about that. I mean, it's one of the best things about the job is the places you're in, and getting to see country that maybe no one's seen, camping in beautiful spots. And it's a fun job.
I mean, that's why I came up with this idea of let's reach out to a smoke jumper. You've seen some of my other guests, maybe a mountaineer or a through hiker doing the Appalachian Trail, whatever. And they're out there in the wilderness getting the best of what Mother Nature has to provide. You get that plus, plus. And
Yeah.
I think some of those pluses have to be really tough and grueling, but you get the good side too.
Yeah, and the tough, grueling part is good too. I guess in retrospect, it's really good to look back on it and you think it was fun. There are definitely times when it's pretty miserable, but the views are insane. The camaraderie's great. The hard work is good. And it's mostly guys that are there because they love the outdoors. They love the adventurous nature of the job. I love the job. I think it's such a cool program. And I'm just excited to, if anyone hears this, and then potentially goes after this as a career, that would be a huge win for me because I feel like a lot of people don't know about it. People have never heard of this program, and it's a neat deal. It's a great opportunity.
And this is done through the U.S. Forest Service, or are there other state-run or other local government-run programs, or private, or
It's all federal. There's two. The Bureau of Land Management also has smoke jumpers, so it's Forest Service and BLM. There's 9 bases total. There's 8 in the western U.S. and 1 in Alaska. About
that's covering a lot. That's covering a lot of ground from just 9 bases.
Yeah, and so certain bases, once the season is up and running, you'll set up spike bases. So there's lightning coming in the southwest. We would rent a hangar down in Pueblo and take a plane down there and take maybe 15 guys down to Pueblo, Colorado, and we would jump fire in the southwest out of there.
So, Jess, you never explained how or why you wanted to become a smoke jumper. How, like, do you remember a day when you said, "That's it, I want to be a smoke jumper"? Or did it just kind of evolve out of your hotshot wildland firefighting?
No, the first time I heard about the job, I was like, I'm gonna do that. That's what I'm here for.
So you had to learn how to parachute. They give you the training for that. What did that training involve?
So it's not much firefighting skills when you go. They call it rookie training. So it's mostly all guys coming from hot shot crews. You apply, and if you do get selected, you'll go to rookie training. It starts as just a beat down. They're trying to get you to quit. You're running and doing calisthenics, hiking with heavy load all day, and then you start working into the jumping. Yeah, it's tons of practice jumping, and then other things that are smoke jumping specific. So tree climbing, you have to do a lot of tree climbing, which is actually pretty scary and challenging. It's spur climbing with a harness. So sometimes you'll land in a tree. It's just inevitable with the jump
Yeah.
spots. And you have a letdown rope in your leg pocket. So you got to train up on rappelling out of trees, tree climbing, part of the training, parachuting, rigging parachutes. But yeah, it's about 6 weeks of beat downs and parachuting for the most part.
Take one of what you would consider your toughest fires and describe a little bit of that play by play.
It's hard for me to pick out the toughest fire, but my first fire was really memorable. I was working up at NCSB in Washington and nervous because it's just finished rookie training. The bell goes off. Your gear is on. It's called the speed rack. So you have all this jump gear and your parachute, and it's all rigged up, ready to go so that you can get into it and get all geared up 2 to 3 minutes. And so bell goes off, you run in. If you're on the list, you get your gear on. You're going to get a buddy check. They're going to make sure you're suited up right. You get on the plane. There's 8 of us on the plane and start flying to the fire. Fly to the fire, circle the fire, find a jump spot, make a plan for a jump plan with your jump partner. And then,
I think it would really be frightening and dangerous to be caught in a treetop on the way down.
yeah, so that was my first fire jump. I treed up. I kind of blew it. And if you are going to land in trees, you want to bag the tree. So get your parachute right over the top. I realized you call it holding into the wind. I was faced away from the jump spot, kind of flying it in backwards because it was higher wind, and saw my jump partner fly by me and realized that I had held too long, turned around, wasn't going to make the jump spot, found the biggest tree, straight into it, and so hung up probably 70 feet up. You rappel out of the tree. We had another guy in a tree. It was a tough jump spot.
Not a graceful start.
Yeah. And then, yeah, they drop cargo. We hike into this fire. And it's really interesting because you come from a hotshot crew. It's very regimented. There's always someone telling you what to do. You have your job and you do that. And with this, it's like cargo hits the ground, everyone grabs a tool and just walks to the fire and goes to work. And a lot of the time you're on your own. The first guy who hits the ground is in charge of that fire, but he might not need to say anything to anyone. Everyone kind of understands what they need to do, and you might end up on a piece of the fire by yourself, cutting line. And that's kind of how this fire went. It was a smaller fire. Everyone got over there, started working. We worked probably about 2 a.m. I think we hooked the head on it and caught it, and then made camp, got a little sleep, and then hiked in the next day. And we actually improved a heli spot so that a hotshot crew could come in and help us mop up the fire. There are probably 2 more days on that particular fire. Got a helicopter right out, so didn't have to hike out. But it was great. It was exciting. I felt like it was a good catch. You walk up to this fire and it's like, oh man, there's only 8 of us. We're going to be able to do this. And then everyone went to work and we caught it. And yeah, it was a great introduction to the job.
So you used the term hooked the head.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll
What does that
try.
mean?
Yeah, so when you're cutting fire line, you'll have the heel of the fire and the head of the fire. And ideally, the safest way to do it is cutting direct line right on the edge. So you'll go to the heel of the fire where it's essentially out or just barely burning, and you'll start scraping all that fuel away from it. And you'll work up towards the more active part of the fire. Ideally, you'll have guys on both sides, and then as they work towards the head of the fire, they'll be able to come together and tie in together at the top, and then that fire is completely surrounded by fire line.
You said cutting a fire line?
Yeah, yeah.
And so that means you're like just taking out all the brush, not the trees necessarily.
Yeah, so taking everything. You'll definitely try to not take trees, but trees that are already on fire will need to come down because they'll throw embers, or any standing dead typically will come down because it's just they're going to catch on
Just
fire. Then
fuel.
again, they'll throw embers outside of the fire line. But yeah, you're taking everything down to mineral soil. It's all dependent on fuel and fire behavior, how big of a line you need to put in,
How big meaning how
how
wide?
wide, how much brush you need to cut, and how much of the ground fuels you need to scrape out. It's a game you play because the less you take, the faster you can move, and the more likely you're going to be able to catch that fire. But it's also the less you take, the more likely that fire is going to jump that line.
I just don't understand how you can ever advance up and around the fire faster than the fire's progressing. It can move fast, right? Depends on the wind, but
Yeah, absolutely.
how do you
And
how do you ever get in front of it?
and a ripper fire, you're not going to. So you might have to go indirect, where you're going to cut line out in front of it, or use a road that's out there, or there's a rock bluff. In that case, if you go indirect, then you need to burn back to the fire. So then you'll cut that indirect piece out in front, and then set your own fire along that, which is going to be a lower intensity fire. And there's methods you can use to direct which way that fire goes. And that fire will suck back to the main body of the fire so that it can't hit that indirect line that you've put in with any momentum.
The classic fight fire with fire.
Yeah, you get creative. You figure it out.
So sometimes you must just lose the battle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's always something you can do. So that'll develop into a larger campaign fire where we'll get more resources in. They'll potentially stay there for a couple weeks. Probably the longest jump fire I had was in southern Idaho, and I think we jumped it at maybe 10 acres. Did not catch it, but we left there 2 weeks later, and it was 100,000 acres, but it was caught at that point. We all stayed and worked and did different things and went into different roles. Obviously, we didn't catch that one small, but we did eventually catch it.
And so you're out there 2 weeks just sleeping, what, tents?
Yeah, I always carried a little tent. You jump in this bulky Kevlar suit that kind of protects you from the trees, and whatever you can stuff in there is essentially what you have. So some extra pairs of socks, a tent. I had a real thin sleeping pad. Yeah, and then if you can wash up in a creek, that's a bonus.
That's a luxury.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you got to just be gritty, grimy at the end of that.
yeah. You kind of just accept that you're just gonna be. It's like terminal filthiness, and then
Yeah.
it's you don't care anymore, and that's fine. You can just. It's almost nice. You just lay in the dirt wherever. You can't get dirtier.
I call it the equilibrium. You get to a certain point
Yeah,
where it never gets worse.
yeah. It's kind of nice. You just don't care anymore.
Yeah. And if it rains, it actually is great because now you're cleaner.
Yep. Yeah.
What are some of the safety precautions? Because every once in a while you read about a hotshot team or something that gets caught by the fire.
I think that probably the biggest danger is the jump itself. The majority of injuries happen that way. It's just challenging jump spots. And then probably second to that would be trees coming down on people. Just when you're walking around in a burned area, these trees are fire weakened and they come down fairly regularly. And then the fire itself would probably be the third. I mean, it does happen. Like you said, you do hear about it. There have been tragedy fires with smoke jumpers. It is rare. And we do tons and tons of training as far as fire behavior and always knowing your escape routes and your safety zones. There's something called the 10s and the 18s. It's kind of your Bible as a wildland firefighter. If you follow them, you're going to be relatively safe. You know, always know what your fire is doing, remain in communication with your forces and adjoining forces. And then there are more specific ones. There's if you have to cut downhill line. So it's more dangerous to cut line downhill. Ideally, you'll be coming from the bottom of a hill, coming up, cutting line along the edge of the fire, because typically that's what the fire would be doing, going up. If you have to go down the hill, it's more dangerous because if that fire squirts out in front of you, it can run uphill really fast.
Because the winds are predominantly up a hill.
That's one aspect, but also it's just flames go up. So they're preheating all the fuel above them and it dries out and it'll run up that hill. So there's all these specific rules for if you do have to cut downhill line, you got to have a lookout. So there's more specific fire rules as well. But we stay safe.
Yeah, well, that's good. I can't picture the amount of hard work that must be. Are you typically swinging the Pulaski like 8, 10, 12, 16 hours a day? What is like
Yeah, if you're trying to catch a fire, you could definitely be swinging a tool for 24 hours.
you got to just be just wiped.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. If it's like I think we can get it. Going to keep going, and that's the exciting part of a fire as well. Yeah, you're wiped. You're absolutely drained. I'll start hallucinating, seeing things in the bushes. But that's the exciting part of fighting the fire is trying to catch it. And then after that, as a jumper, you'll go into the mop up phase, and that's not the fun part of firefighting. You certainly don't want to rekindle because you're way out in the middle of nowhere. It'd be embarrassing if we had to jump back in, and you don't have a lot of other resources around. You don't have water to put on it, so we'll dry mop up that fire a lot of the time, which is just essentially stirring dirt. Anything smoking, you just stir it up with dirt and you just spend all day just stirring dirt. And then before you leave, if the fire is small enough, the whole crew will line out and you'll get down on hands and knees and crawl through the entire thing, feeling it with your hands, looking for any hot spots left.
And that might be covering acres and acres of
Yeah,
land.
Yeah, at a certain point, you're not going to do that. You'll just check all the edges really good, make sure the edges are mopped up perfectly. But yeah, you could spend a whole day crawling around on hands and knees, feeling the dirt for any hot spots. So it's not real glamorous.
Well, dry mopping just doesn't have a romantic sound to
Yeah,
it, no
it's
matter
not
how you put the
super
spin on
super exciting. Just stirring dirt all day.
it. So the way you describe it, it's hard work. It's going to be hot, likely in
Yeah,
summertime. You got a fire there. It's smoky. You're working long hours. I don't think you get paid a lot in that occupation.
unfortunately not.
Yeah. And so why should someone do it?
Oh man. Well, it's an incredible challenge. You're constantly pushed outside your comfort zone as far as, making decisions on fires, acting in roles that maybe you're not completely comfortable with. And so I think it's a great opportunity for growth for
Mm.
people who are interested in that type of work. You see beautiful country, you get to work with an incredible group of people, some of the most capable and interesting people I've ever met in my life. You have a ton of freedom and autonomy. Yeah, and it's fun. You go to work, you go work out, you go do a practice jump into a beautiful meadow somewhere, come back and rig some parachutes with your friends.
Yeah, and you do get paid.
Yeah, and you're getting paid.
Tell us a little bit more about fire behavior and some of the techniques you use.
Okay. Yeah, so I talked about your basic going direct on a fire, cutting fire line. And that's the safest because they call that having one foot in the black. So essentially the idea is if that fire did blow up on you, you can run back down the line you've cut and then run into the already burned area, which should be void of fuels and unable to reburn so that you'd be safe.
That's probably where I'd hang out is just back on the heel.
In the black. Yeah.
Hey guys, see you in a while. I'll be back here just holding down the fort.
No, I listened to your ep. Just ran a hundo. I think you'd do great
Yeah.
out there. You'd be crushing it,
Yeah, running, staying in front of the flames. Yeah.
dude. Yeah, you could swing a pulaski all day. Yeah. So working with aircraft a lot. So if it is a little bit too hot, you can have aircraft coming in right in front of you and putting either retardant or water on the fire. So it's cool enough for you to get in there, cut your line, and then you'll just continue working together that way. They also use a lot of swatters, which looks exactly like what it sounds. It looks like a giant fly swatter. Maybe a 10-foot PVC pipe with like shredded tires on the end. And the tundra fires, where it's the ground itself is just burning, you can just smack it with the swatter and it'll go out. It's actually kind of a fun way to fight fire because you can move really fast. You're running along the sides, smacking the burning edge and putting it out.
That's got to be a pretty funny looking video if you didn't know what was going on there.
Yeah, it's if you didn't know what it was, it's a goofy looking tool.
Huh. So you went through some of the terminology: hook the head,
Oh yeah,
mop up the fire, ripper fire, dry mopping, swatters, swamper. I forgot what swamper was.
that's the guy who just he works with the sawyer who's got the chainsaw, and your job is just to throw sticks if you're the swamper. you're
Oh, you're just dragging the brush and
yeah, he
logging.
cuts it. You guys work together and you get it off the fire line. That's a hard job.
What techniques have changed over the years with wildland firefighting?
Technologically, kind of the big thing that's happening now is drones are being used,
Oh, yeah.
which are great. You can scout line without leaving. You can fly the drone over, see what's burning. A lot of these drones have infrared cameras. So, where I had talked about crawling around and feeling every inch of the fire, if you have a drone and maybe you have a piece of ground that's dangerous to be on, it's really steep, you think that the fire's burned itself out over in that area, you're not quite sure. Instead of sending someone in there to crawl around and be in dangerous ground, you can fly it, the IR drone.
Oh, that's huge.
Huge. There's drones that can drop incendiary devices. It looks like little ping pong balls, and they can fly along and drop these, and they'll make a little explosion and then start a fire. And so use that for some of those back burns I was talking about, which is helpful. So you don't have to have guys back in there with a drip torch putting fire on the ground, because that's also can be a dangerous operation.
Yeah, that sounds terrifying. A drone that drops incendiary devices.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
You don't
less.
want that in the wrong hands.
Yeah, it's less terrifying than the Terra Torch, which is a sight to see. It hangs off the bottom of a helicopter, and it's just a flamethrower that shoots just a full stream of fire out the bottom of the helicopter.
I don't think I'd want to be a pilot with that.
It does not seem fully safe. I'm sure they can punch it and let it go, but it's pretty
Yeah.
wild to see.
Wow. You call it the what? The Terra Torture.
The Terra Torch, yeah.
Terra Torch. Oh, that's an apt name, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an exciting one to see come out.
So, what surprised you the most about the smoke jumping world that you didn't expect when you went into it?
Um, so we do a lot of fabrication, which I did not know going into it. So it's such a small group and kind of a niche job. There's not companies making things for this job. So other than the canopies themselves, the jumpers make everything. They sew their jumpsuits, they sew the harnesses for the parachutes, they sew their bags, they sew all the deployment bags for cargo shoots. So you spend a lot of time sewing and fabricating crafts like that.
Huh. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that either.
No,
Oh,
and
interesting.
it's cool. It's a cool skill. You get some specialized training on it because you are sewing up canopies and repairing parachutes. And
What's your advice to someone who's interested? You can't just start off as a smoke jumper.
no, and my first piece of advice is go do it. It's about the most fun you could have. But there's a lot of fun things you can do along the way. So I would say try and get on a hotshot crew. If you can't get on a hotshot crew right away, just get a job in wildland fire, get on an engine. And then the way to get a job with either a hotshot crew or smoke jumping is go to the hotshot base, tell them you want to work there, call them. You're going to feel like you're bugging them, keep calling them. It's how you get a job. Go out there, run with the crew, PT with the crew,
Be visible. Yeah.
be visible. And then once you're on the crew, work hard, be a good hotshot. I mean, it's all about reputation. It's a small community. That's how you're going to get hired.
What's one lesson smoke jumping's taught you that you found most valuable in your broader life?
Yeah, so I appreciate this question. There's two things that I took away from it. And one is really taught me how to figure out how to get things done. So working outside of the scope that you're comfortable in and just making it happen. Because you have what you have and you've got a problem to solve. Sometimes you got to get real creative. I think I really developed a lot in that way doing that job. The other thing that I think was very helpful is it's really good to be scared sometimes, to be scared or stressed in these acute instances is beneficial to the rest of your life. It just makes the rest of your life seem a little easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Puts things in perspective, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, life feels pretty cushy now most of the time, which is great.
So, Jess, back in the day, you said, I want to become a smoke jumper, and you went out and you did that. What's your next big goal you set for yourself?
Oh, man. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, I just finished up my paramedic program. So, as far as work goes, I'm just going to be really focusing on trying to be a good medic. This is a whole new kind of scary challenge for me that I'm really enjoying. And then personally, I've got a young son. He just turned 9 months old. And my wife and I are just really enjoying parenthood right now. And I guess kind of my main adventure right now is I just want to expose my boy to all the different opportunities, take him out to the jump base. And I'm going to have him listen to your podcast so he can hear about all these cool adventures people do.
At 9 months, huh?
Well, yeah, he'll absorb some of it, I'm sure.
You're starting them young.
Yeah.
You're probably going to go out and fabricate a little mini harness to take them on a jump or something.
Dude, they had a little tiny harness at the base that they put on kids when they come by. It was really cute. Not for actual jumping, but for photo ops.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can say the parenting will be probably the biggest adventure you've ever had in your life. So enjoy it.
It's been amazing. We're having the time of our lives right now.
Excellent. Well, Jess, thank you so much for the time today and the education. I learned a lot.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed it. Hope you got some usable stuff in there.
Stay safe. Do good out there.
Thanks, Dale. You have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Carpe Diem Live Your Dream podcast. If you like the show, there's nothing more valuable to me than you following it and sharing it with others. I drop a new episode every Friday, so tune in again for another great adventure story. And check out the accompanying website, www.gocarpediemnow.com, and then go seize the day and live your dream.